Well, hello, Forest Meadow, and welcome back to another episode of our Sermon Reflections. And for those of you who were able to join us on Sunday, you know that we spent a lot of time talking about discipleship. And discipleship might be a very frightening thing for us to be talking about. It might be frightful for you, maybe for a number of reasons. Maybe you say, Mike, we talk about discipleship, but I don't feel like I've ever been discipled. So, how can I make disciples if no one's ever really taken the time to disciple me? Well, that's a very valid question. We're going to talk about that over the next couple of weeks. So, stay close to where we are. And by the way, if you have a question specifically about being discipled, reach out to myself and perhaps I can do this, or perhaps there's somebody else that I know who would love to join in and to help with this part of your life. But perhaps you have a different reason why this is scary. Maybe you look at this and say, Mike, I am a disciple. I'm serious about following Jesus, but I just don't know how to make disciples. What is the process like? What things, I don't know what I'm supposed to say. I don't know enough that I can really teach. I don't know enough that I can really lead this other person. Where exactly am I supposed to lead them? What things do we talk about? Well, we're going to talk about that over the next few weeks. But one particular thing that we can grab hold of from this passage teaches us two fundamental precepts, two fundamental concepts for us to make disciples. And this is all the way back in Matthew 4:19. We mentioned it on Sunday. Jesus says, "Follow me, and I will make you fishers of men." Follow me. Now, what I find fascinating about this is that Jesus doesn't say, "Listen to me." He doesn't say, model your life after me. He doesn't say to memorize the Ten Commandments. He doesn't say to do any of these other things that he could have said. But he turns to these men and he says, follow me. Now what that incorporates is a whole lot. It actually costs us the most expensive thing that we have, and that is time. Time. It really is the resource of our life. It's the fundamental thing that can make us really progress in one area or keep us just kind of stranded in the same place for years on end. But time has two fundamental directions that it goes, right? We have time with God and time with other people. And what we're really after with time is that we cannot make disciples of other people if we ourselves are not spending time with God. So we must spend time with God, learning at His feet, learning from Him, time with the Bible opened and our hearts opened and saying, God, what is it that you want from me? Show me the things that are in my life that are not pleasing to you. Help me to live today in a manner that is pleasing to you. So we have to first spend time with God, just like the disciples did. They spent 3 years walking around with Jesus, 3 years walking around, learning from him, modeling him, asking questions to him, probably even joking around with him, eating food, sleeping. They had all kinds of normal things they had to do. And throughout that time, they got to see, they got to learn how it is that Jesus the Master did it. And so, if we want to be people who make disciples, we must first spend time with Jesus, and then we have to spend time with the person we're discipling. So, time, that is the number one resource. And so, you might be fearful right now and saying, but Mike, you don't know how busy I am. You don't know the things that are on my list, on my schedule right now. Well, what I would say to that is, make sure that you're doing the things that God wants you to be doing. That's the first thing to just consider. I understand busyness. I get that. We all have busy lives, but guess what? That probably is not about to change for us. And so we have to figure out a way that we are going to try to obey this command. First of all, to spend time with the Lord, and secondly, to spend time with others. And so this is what's built into the model 1-1-12, where each of us, we may not have a tremendous amount of time. Maybe you can't sit down for 3 or 4 hours with a person once a week. Okay, that's understandable. That's really difficult for most of us to do. But can you sit down with somebody for 1 hour once a month, 12 times a year? You know, it's amazing what happens whenever we do things consistently and constantly. It's amazing the types of things we can learn from one another when we just spend regular time together. It might not be a long amount of time, but a consistent amount of time really changes the direction of our lives. It's amazing how our whole lives can be changed in 10 minutes a day reading the Bible. Our whole lives can be changed by just simply spending time with Jesus. And guess what? We also have the ability to help, to be instrumental in changing and transforming somebody else's life because we took an hour out of our month to just spend with them, asking them how their walk with the Lord is, asking them how their relationship with their kids are, or their relationship with their spouse. There are so many things that we can learn and so many basic things that we can do. But perhaps you still have more questions. So here's what we're going to do. If you have any questions, I am going to ask you to take those questions, write them down, put them in the offering plate. You know what? I want to spend time answering the specific questions that maybe you have about discipleship. Like, how do I make disciples? What types of things do we talk about? For how long should we meet? And what exactly is going to be that format? How do I get started? I don't know exactly who would I start discipling. What if I don't feel competent to start making disciples? Those are all the types of questions that perhaps you might be asking. Maybe it's something that I've missed altogether. Write down those questions or put it in the comments. Let me know what types of things you guys are asking. But we are going to take the next couple of weeks to talk specifically about making disciples. Not just being disciples, but finishing that discipleship process, which I suggested on Sunday, probably more than suggested, is that you have to start making disciples to really be a disciple, at least to kind of complete that process. In other words, making disciples is almost like the graduation stage that I am a disciple, a follower of Jesus Christ. And so, anyways, why don't we go ahead and move on to our questions for the week? Our first question is this: what are the 3 things that we mentioned for the children that a disciple needs to do? Remember, we talked about that on Sunday. Number 2, are these 3 sufficient? Number 3, what fundamental concept must a disciple understand? Consider Matthew 28, verse 18. Number 4, if God has all authority, why do we not always see it exercised as we would expect? Number 5, what is sufficient for being a disciple? Number 6, what are a few examples of disciples being true disciples, both in the Bible and also in recent history? And you can consider the book of Acts for that one. Number 7, why do we sometimes fear praying for God to give us a task? And how do we overcome this? Number 8, how does one's life change after he becomes a disciple? And how does it change as he matures? Number 9, what does a disciple do in addition to those things listed in question number 1? And number 10, am I a disciple? How do I know? And what should I do if I need to become one? Well, those are a few things that we're going to be talking about over the next couple of weeks. As a quick teaser, as we've already mentioned, this next week we're going to be talking more about disciples. How do I really make sure that I'm becoming a disciple? What things do I need to be doing to be on the path? And then also, how do I take those first steps in making disciples of people who are around me? And so, thank you guys so much for taking the time to join us. My hope and my prayer right now is that you guys would take the time to seek the Lord and say, Lord, who is it that I should either be discipling? Who should I start trying to disciple? Or Who should I be learning from? Both of those are incredibly helpful questions. At least we can be taking them to the Lord in prayer. Who should I learn from, Lord? Or who is it that I can maybe pour my life into of all the things that you have taught me? And so, with that said, thank you guys so much for joining us. Thank you for taking the time to dig deeper into the scriptures, and I hope you have a great day.